Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. I'm Bob.
I'm Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Hey.
How you doing?
Okay.
Yeah? Wow, that's actually like a better answer than I was expecting, for real.
I mean, you gotta you take all your bad feelings.
Oh,
and
man.
you
No, this is
put 'em-
not what the podcast is
You
for,
put
Ben.
them in a box, and then you put that box in the corner, and then you crush it.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to talk about before we get to the movie and stuff?
No.
Okay, I have a couple I have like the news portion of the podcast, which we'll get to. But also, do you have a name for the season yet? Have you thought of one? I'm just putting it out there. We haven't talked about it all season. I've been putting it off. I have not come up with one, but there is something there. You have to have something at this point. Because like Catholic movies, witches, Universal monster movies, come on. We got to have something, man.
She turned me into a newt.
Okay. That one screams witches, but not any of the other ones.
Well, that screams Monty Python, Bob.
Oh my god, it does. I didn't think about that. God damn you and your Monty Python jokes. I was just asking, because normally we have something by now.
Except for last season.
Yeah.
And this season. We'll figure it out in the last episode. The wrap-up. That's when we'll figure it out.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. There's got to be something there. If anyone in the comments has suggestions, leave a comment with
Witches.
a good name for the title.
More like bitches.
Yeah. You can't make that joke anymore. We're already done with that category.
That could be the season title.
I don't think so. I don't think we can do that. You said I can't put curse words in the episode titles.
Witches. More
Actually,
like...
I lied just now. You said that, but I've done it.
Yeah.
I put damn in one of them.
That's not a curse word.
Eh.
Nope.
Eh.
Nope.
It's not like fuck.
It's not a curse word at all.
Is it not?
Nope.
Would you not consider a curse word?
Nope.
My mom used to get really mad when I would say damn.
It's only a curse word if you're like religious, but specifically Christian,
That makes sense.
and only some people.
Okay.
It's like saying hell. Also not a
yeah.
curse word.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But like if you're from a religious family and your parents don't want you saying that, you're like, oh, it's bad. Like, no, it's just a word.
Okay.
I mean, so is fuck, but like at least fuck has some justification.
Okay. So, before we get to the movie part of the podcast, I do have a couple of news things. First thing, there's a new horror film called...
What?
Yeah.
A new horror film?
A new one, Ben. There's so many. I only usually write down ones that I find interesting or find the concept cool. Anything else I just kind of leave for the wind because it's not that important to me. You know what I mean? Because like if I wrote on every new release, I'd be here for fucking ever. But there's a new horror film coming out called Late Night with the Devil, and it's not out yet, and they've only shown it at, I think it was South by Southwest or something. It's like
the film festival?
Yeah, a film festival film. It received an R rating recently for violent content, some gore, and language, which, it's a horror movie. What can you expect? But it releases in theaters on March 22nd and then heads to Shudder on April 19th. What's cool about this movie is the setting, because it's something I've never really thought about before. And it's also a category we've already covered, which is, why I brought it up. It's a demonic possession film set on a live broadcast for TV in the 70s. Super cool concept. I really enjoy that idea as like a device for horror in that way.
I want you to know I've seen that exact film before.
Really?
That concept, yeah.
I've never even thought about something like that. It's super cool to me. But yeah, so it'll come out in theaters on March 22nd and heads to Shudder on April 19th. If you're interested in that concept, check it out. From what I can tell, it's actually pretty well reviewed on South by Southwest.
Oh, that's good.
People liked it, so that says something. Next thing, I don't know if you've heard of this film. It's considered a horror movie, but it is... Well, I'll get to it. This film is called Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. They're making a remake. This movie's from the 90s.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it.
The movie they're remaking is R-rated instead of PG-13, which is interesting.
So less scary for you.
Yes, less scary for me. For those that don't know, every PG-13 movie we've seen on the podcast has been me shit my brains.
It's also just because that movie is pretty adult anyways, because ratings were a little fucky back when PG-13 was newer. And PG-13 from the 90s isn't always PG-13 today.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting because, A, cool movie concept. Never even heard of this film before. But B, it's just interesting that they would up the rating for the remake.
Fair enough.
Last thing, then this is something we talked about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something. It was sometime earlier this season. I remember us talking about it. They're remaking Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Oh, we didn't talk about this.
Well, no, we talked about the 50-Foot Woman.
Oh, yeah, we did. We talked about her and, like, the Wasp Women and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. But we did not. They got announced recently because to be produced by Warner Brothers, which, whatever. But it's going to be directed by Tim Burton. So Tim Burton, fresh off Beetlejuice 2,
that'll be fun.
is directing this film. And that is fun because what did he do? He already did the other, was the Mars one from the 50s.
Oh,
is it
Attack from Mars?
Attack from Mars? He already did that remake.
Yeah.
Which I heard that movie's not great.
No, but it's super stylized in like the best way possible.
Exactly. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for on this. I've never seen Attack of the 50-Foot Woman at all. I know what it is.
It's just a cheesy 40s movie. So really the thing you want is you want someone who's able to do that. And to be honest, if Tim Burton did a more serious take in his usual style, I'd be okay with that too. But I think he'll be good with it.
Yeah. I just thought that was really sick because we talked about that film. It's a film that...
Yeah, because it's just a ludicrous title.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's insane, right? Especially in the 40s. Pulling off something like that is cool. Like, that's like a marvel of cinema. And doing it now is like... We've seen kaiju films. They exist, you know? You're just making a big person.
Yeah, but it's a lady.
But it's a lady.
Do you know...
Oh,
you know what? I'm going to
Where you
stop
going?
myself. Nope.
Because I can tell you about a tweet that I saw.
You can tell me about that tweet. I'm just not going to finish my thought.
Okay. I saw people tweeting, because, you know, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman is not necessarily a scary film for modern audiences.
No.
Because what are you to be afraid of? Someone, like, I think this article I read was from Bloody Disgusting, and someone quote retweeted it and said, they really don't know what they're getting themselves into today. Lots of men want big women to step on them.
That's
Which I thought was so fucking funny.
That's basically what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how scary this is anymore. People would pay for the experience that movie's going to provide.
Exactly.
It's going to be so over-sexualized.
Oh, it has to.
I can see it right now.
Whatever. Yeah, that's all my news. That's all I got today. I know a ton of stuff came out this week that I was super interested in.
Okay, well, we got to watch a movie.
Yeah, we do.
We got the last Universal monster film and then the last Catholic spot.
And I kind of teased it. I'm not gonna watch a Catholic film this week. I want to save that for the last spot of the season because that category has been really good. But also, I liked Dracula quite a bit more than Frankenstein. So I'm excited to see what's in this last category spot for Universal Monster Films. Ben has been teasing me, and we talked about this before the podcast. I'm going to put this out there right now before you tell me anything. If it's not The Mummy, I'm going to be so surprised because Ben fucking loves The Mummy.
No.
Ben is always spouting on and on about The Mummy.
It's
so
great.
if it's not that, I'm going to be surprised.
My bookmark that I just use is a metal Boris Karloff
That's awesome.
from The Mummy
Where'd you get that?
convention.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It's like a holographic one.
Oh, that's dope. So yeah, Ben, what are we watching?
The Mummy.
I fucking knew it.
It's from 1932. Description. The best undead man this season.
Ooh. I'm trying to think if there's a better one.
No.
As of right now, no.
No.
Okay.
It's just Dracula and Frankenstein.
And now The Mummy.
The Mummy. One of those is the same actor.
Yeah.
Because Boris Karloff's The Mummy.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know. Description. I did that. Length. It's an hour and 13 minutes long. Got an approved rating.
Hell yeah.
Review scores. IMDb gave it a 7.0 out of 10. Tomato Meter gave it an 89%. And an audience score of 72%. For awards, it has 1 win and 3 nominations. Notable actors. We already mentioned Boris Karloff, but I think it's important to note he was credited as Karloff.
Whoa.
His
Interesting.
His stage name was Karloff the Uncanny, so that's kind of how people knew him, is by his last name.
Okay.
Obviously, he plays the Mummy. There's a couple other names for the character, like his actual name and stuff, but the Mummy is generally how you'll know him. Obviously, he was the monster in Frankenstein. Zita Johann as Helen Grosvenor. She played Nora Moran in The Sin of Nora Moran. David Manners as Frank Wemple. He played John Harker in Dracula.
Oh, he's back.
Arthur Byron as Sir Joseph Wemple. He played Spencer in The Whole Town's Talking. Edward Van Sloan as Dr. Muller. He was What we just see him as.
Oh God, I don't remember. My brain hurts.
He's been in 3 different movies.
I was about to say he's been in a lot of movies. This season.
Last time we saw him, he was Van Helsing in Dracula.
Okay.
And before that, he was the Doctor in Frankenstein.
God damn.
So he's been in all our Universal stuff this season.
Hell yeah.
Bramwell Fletcher as Ralph Norton. He played Bunny in Raffles. Noble Johnson as the Nubian. He was a native chief in King Kong.
Oh. We haven't seen King Kong yet.
No, we haven't.
We should watch King Kong.
It almost went on last season.
Ooh, yeah. That would have been sick.
But then I was like,
We could have watched
Save
that
it.
instead of fucking, what was it, The Lost World? Garbage-ass movie. Still mad about it.
It wouldn't have been instead of The Lost World, though. It would have been instead of one of our pre-code films.
Would you not consider King Kong's not? Never mind. They don't get an actual monkey to play King Kong.
Yeah, it's all stop motion.
Yeah.
We talked about this last season, and I was like, I'll save it until stop motion.
Oh, stop motion would be a good category.
Catherine Byron as Frau Muller. She played the third daughter in Arthur Byron's and Company in a Family Affair. It was a short. Leonard Muddy as Professor Pearson. He was Baron Jeffries in Captain Blood. And then finally James Crane as Pharaoh, which was interestingly enough misspelled as Pharaoh, Pharoh, instead of, Pharaoh.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, he played Pharaoh Amenophis. And he also played Bob Merrick in Sinners. Director's Carl Freud also directed The Countess of Monte Cristo.
Oh.
Not The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, that's why I said
The Countess.
Because I was like, I don't know what that is.
It's about a woman who lies that she's a countess. Writer is, there's 3. There's Nina Wilcox Putnam. She worked on The Fourth Horseman. She has a story by credit. Richard Shayer, who also has a story by credit. He also wrote Where East is East. And then the actual screenplay credit goes to John L. Balderston, who also wrote Gaslight. And we've heard of him before.
I was about to say he's from something else too.
Yes. Do you know what it was?
Absolutely not.
Dracula.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Again, lots of doubling up on cast here. Budget's estimated at $196,000. Couldn't find a box office, so unknown. Country of origins, obviously the United States. Tagline, it comes to life.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, facts. So, this film is inspired by a real-life event. Can you guess what it is?
Yeah, it's when they went to Egypt and stole all their mummies.
Hey, they were just sitting there. We found them.
Shut up.
We found them.
You cannot defend
and then we just borrowed them for
British
forever.
Museum stealing.
Also, I'm just putting this out here. Everyone was taking them.
No, I know.
The Brits,
Everybody.
the Egyptians, everyone. Actually, very common practice is people would dig them up and just burn them.
Really?
They make great kindling.
God bless.
So there's a bunch
That's
of pictures of
crazy.
just Egyptian people just burning them because for a lot of Egyptians it was just like, well, sometimes you don't want to dig up the dead, but sometimes it was a very lucrative business if you lived in Egypt. So you could go tomb raid, find all the jewels, sell them, and then you had a bunch of mummies, and it was like, what do we use these for?
Burn them.
Burn them. That, or it's like, let's grind them up and sell them to the Europeans, and they'll sniff them.
Whoa, what the fuck?
Ground up mummy was a medicine. There's a specific word for it, I believe, that isn't just ground up mummy. But yeah, people ate it.
Whoa,
Like a lot.
that's fucked up.
Like a lot. Like a lot of people ate mummies. The big deal.
Weird.
Anyways, that's not specifically what this movie is based on. It's based on a more specific and more famous.
King Tut.
Yes.
Yeah.
The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb and the alleged curse that came along with it
Nice.
is kind of the inspiration for this film. And so what happened is they heard about that and they were like, oh, that'd make a cool idea for a movie. Let's find a book that we can base that on. Because at this point, remember, they'd done some had done some successful monster films, Frankenstein and Dracula, but both of those are based on books and then plays, of course. And so that's what they were looking for, but they couldn't find anything. So instead, they ended up stumbling upon a treatment for a film that ended up becoming the basis for this movie. The treatment was titled Cagliostro.
Why does that sound familiar?
He was a historical figure
Mm.
I don't know about him too much historically, but the general legend is that he was like a magician,
Okay.
sorcerer, or whatever. And the treatment was about him surviving for like 300 years and
Damn.
living in like LA and something, like sacrificing people,
Oh my god.
usual stuff. And that kind of became the basis for this film. Of course, that means that Cagliostro never got made, which kind of sucks because it sounds pretty interesting.
It does sound pretty cool.
What I could read about it. But there is some actual like cover art made for Cagliostro
Oh, that's cool.
for back when the treatment was made. It looks pretty interesting. So yeah, of course, the treatment's written by those first two people I named, Putnam and Shayer. And then, of course, Balderson took that and made a screenplay out of it. And when he made the screenplay, he, of course, changed a bunch of stuff. But the basis of Cagliostro became this film. With that being said, I think it is important to note that the plot of this movie, The Mummy, 1932, vaguely resembles a short story called The Ring of Thoth by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh, cool.
So, well, there is no book basis for this movie. There is at least a piece that is somewhat similar in plot. Not all the way, though. Aside from that, one of the interesting things about this film is there are some, miscredit stuff in the credits.
Huh.
Obviously, we talked about some misspelling, but I thought it was really interesting that there's someone who's credited in this film who isn't in the film. Henry Victor is credited in the film as Saxon Warrior, despite the fact that that performance was deleted. So apparently there was some longer sequences that were cut from the film for time reasons.
Damn.
It didn't look like it was for censorship reasons, but for time reasons. And it looks like that footage has been lost. There's still some stills of it, but that's about it. With that being said, I think that character, the Saxon Warrior, I'm not entirely sure, but because again, I haven't seen that footage. It's gone. But from what I was reading into it, it looks like that might be the basis for, the warriors in the 1999 Mummy?
Yeah.
I think that's where that comes from.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. That might be based on another movie. But with that being said, I only have one more thing.
Okay.
And it's going to be a really long tirade. So do you have any questions before it?
Yes. The thing I said I was going to bring up if we were going to watch The Mummy, I'll bring it up now before you go on this long tangent about whatever you're about to say to me.
Okay.
So, at least I'm a Terrifier enjoyer on the podcast. Ben thinks it's fine. Terrifier 2, Lauren Lavera, the actress who plays Sienna, she posted on her Twitter.
She's very nice, by the way.
Yeah, she's super nice. We met her at the convention. One of the nicest people. She posted, I follow her on Twitter, and she posted, an outfit picture, and she was wearing, black Ugg boots. And someone quote retweeted it, said, "You got that Boris Karloff drip." Because she was wearing fucking the same, big black boots he's wearing in Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's the platform kind of thing.
Yeah, but she was wearing Uggs. She was like, unless he's wearing Uggs, I don't think so. But it was super duper funny. Irrelevant because Boris Karloff. I just thought I'd bring that up. A funny tweet that I saw.
He wears the platforms in that movie. I think they make him look bigger.
Yeah.
It also
he's supposed to be big.
Makes him look kind of stilted when he walks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my long tirade here is going to be about the franchise that is The Mummy.
Oh, God. Okay.
Because,
the 1999 Mummy's good.
Yeah. There's
Okay.
more to it than that.
I know.
So, The Mummy, interestingly enough, unlike basically every other Universal monster film, has no official sequels.
Whoa.
Rather, it is reimagined in its next follow-up feature,
Okay.
The Mummy's Hand. So it's not a direct sequel. It's its own thing. And that film has its own sequels. So The Mummy's Hand came out in 1940.
Okay.
And it has, I believe, 3 or 4 sequels, depending on how you look at it.
Whoa.
There's The Mummy's Tomb from 1942, The Mummy's Ghost from 1944, and The Mummy's Curse, also from 1944. And then there is a comedy horror crossover, which these are very, very famous, if you've never heard about them, which is very specifically Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy.
I don't know who that is.
They're comedians.
Okay.
The closest comparison I could do is, that'd be like saying The Three Stooges Meet the Mummy.
Well, that sounds awesome.
It's kind of a similar concept. These films, this separate timeline focus on a different mummy character.
Huh.
It's a character named Karis instead of, the actual mummy, which is, do you know the mummy's name?
Oh, God.
It's the same as the 1999 one.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie in years.
Imhotep.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So it's Karis instead of Imhotep. Although, notably, it's Clarice in the Abbott and Costello film. So that's the original run of mummy films.
Oh, no, there's more. Okay.
Oh, there's more. I said a long tirade. In the 1950s, the late 1950s, the British company Hammer Film Productions. Why have we heard of Hammer Films?
Oh, well, God, what movie is that? House on Haunted Hill.
Yes, very good.
Sorry, that season had 3 movies with about the same name, and I had to figure out which one it was.
Yeah, no, it's the Vincent Price one.
Yeah, that movie's so good.
Hammer Films do a lot of really goofy, over-the-top stuff.
Gags, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, like the Tingler.
Oh, yeah. The skeleton.
The skeleton, obviously, from Best Actor, skeleton.
Best actor.
In House on Haunted Hill. But also, a lot of the classic Vincent Price stuff comes from Hammer Films. And they actually got, I don't want to say rebranded. I believe what happened is they got bought out, but they became Dark Castle. So, all the Hammer Films got basically bought by, I think, Dark Castle, which is the modern company. So, 13 Ghosts is a Hammer film, and Dark Castle.
We haven't seen 13 Ghosts, but I've heard it's good.
Remade it. Anyways, 1950s, Hammer Film Production took up the Mummy theme.
Oh, no, that sounds so cool, Ben.
Beginning with The Mummy in 1959.
Oh, of course.
So there's another The Mummy.
Yeah.
That's a pattern, by the way. Which, rather than being a remake of the 1932 Karloff film, is based on Universal's The Mummy's Hand.
Oh, my God.
Again, from 1940. And The Mummy's Tomb, which came out in 1942 as well. So those are the films that The Mummy from 1955 is based on.
Okay, so this condensed 2 films.
Sort of.
Or just combined them in a way, I guess.
I mean, it's just, it used those as basis. Hammer then followed up The Mummy from 1955 with The Mummy from 1959, with The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb in 1964.
Didn't they already come out?
And The Mummy's Shroud.
Jesus Christ.
No, that was The Mummy's Tomb. This is The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb.
Oh, you're so
Get
right.
it straight.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb in 1964 and The Mummy's Shroud in 1966 and Blood from the Mummy's Tomb in 1971.
Stop.
Now, what's so interesting about all these films is they are unrelated to the first film or even to each other.
They're just all completely separate mummy films?
Yep.
This shit's wild.
Apart from the appearance of the Scroll of Life in Curse of the Mummy's Tomb and Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. That's the only connection between all of these films. And then eventually we get to the golden era of The Mummy when much later Universal Films made The Mummy in 1999, which is amazing. It's a pulp adventure kind of thing. It's very different than anything that came before it, but it's a lot of fun. The Mummy from 1999 also implies that it is a remake of the 1932 film. I mean, obviously, the titular mummy is still Imhotep in both, but it does have a different storyline than the 1932 film, the one we're going to be watching today.
Cool.
In fact, the 1999 Mummy is more similar to The Mummy's Hand, so the sequel from 1940, rather than, the original. The Mummy from 1999 then spawned 2 sequels.
Oh, my God.
With The Mummy Returns in 2001 and The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor in 2008. And to make this more confusing, The Mummy Returns, which is notoriously known in most film circles for having some of the worst CGI of the early 2000s, with Dwayne The Rock Scorpion, spawned a prequel spin-off of that sequel, obviously. The Scorpion King.
Yeah.
Based on, The Rock's character in that sequel film. And the Scorpion King movie, which came out in 2002, in turn spawned a prequel, The Scorpion King 2, Rise of a Warrior, which came out in 2008.
God, those movies suck.
3 sequels. The Scorpion King 3, Battle for Redemption in 2012, The Scorpion King 4, Quest for Power in 2015, and Scorpion King Book of Souls in 2018.
I don't remember any of those after the first two.
I don't think I've seen any of the Scorpion King
Oh,
films.
they're awful. They're
That's what
not
I've heard.
good.
But I kind of want to watch them.
No, you don't.
It also spawned a short-lived animated series simply titled The Mummy,
Oh, that's
which
cool.
ran from 2001 to 2003. And that seems to be based on the actual movies and not the Scorpion King. Go figure. Then we get to the last bit of our timeline, which is in 2012, Universal announced a reboot of the film, more in line with the, original horror films,
Mm-hmm.
rather than, Scorpion King. And this reboot was, I believe it's directed by Alex Kurtzman. That's The Mummy from 2017.
Oh, I didn't know that came out.
What?
I didn't know they remade The Mummy in 2017. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah. It's the one with Tom Cruise.
Oh, you're so right. I forgot that
It's like,
movie
what are
happened.
you talking about? Bob's
No,
like, I blacked it out.
No, I did. I completely forgot that happened.
Stay gone.
We've talked about that movie on the podcast.
Oh, we
before.
talked about that movie a lot. It was, of course, the planned beginning of an interconnected monster film universe
Yeah.
that didn't work because
They're bringing it back. Did you see?
we've talked about it.
They're bringing back the Dark Universe.
But the fact that the negative reviews on The Mummy from 2017 were
Yeah.
so bad,
no, it was bad.
and it was considered such a box office flop that it scrapped like a multi-year plan for the Dark Universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like the movie timeline thing.
I feel like the
that
Mummy
the
really
Mummy's got.
peaked at the first one and then kind of went downhill from there. Not gonna lie.
Uh,
No, never mind. It's more like a peak, then a very deep valley, and then a peak again in 1999, and then a very deep valley.
and if you'll notice, there's 4 films entitled The Mummy.
Yeah, that's not confusing at all, guys.
No,
Not at all, Universal. Not.
I think that's worse than Halloween,
Oh, it's far worse. There's only 2 called Halloween.
especially since most people don't know that there's multiple The Mummy movies.
I didn't know that.
There's also 3 or 4 different films that are something The Mummy's Tomb.
Blood of the Mummy's Tomb, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb,
The Mummy's Tomb.
the Mummy. Shut up.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Creativity's not the thing here.
Yeah.
So when we have to finish up the Mummy franchise,
We have a lot of movies to
just
get through.
know that we'll have to watch all the Scorpion King films.
No way. There's no way I'm sitting through all those movies. Because none of those are horror movies.
But
They're all like dumb
they're-
action adventure films with The Rock.
They're vaguely related.
Shut up.
So is the Mummy. The 1999 Mummy is not a horror movie.
But it's good and I want to watch it.
It is. But the problem with watching it is we do have to watch The Mummy Returns, which is also pretty good. The Dragon Emperor, which is not good.
Not good.
And the Scorpion King films. I heard the first one's okay.
It's not.
Okay, though. Not great.
I wouldn't even call it okay, for real. I saw that movie when I was younger. And, when you're a kid, things look a lot... Even as a kid, I went, this is ass.
Bob's going to love it as an adult.
Oh, maybe. That'd be hilarious. That would be so funny.
Bob's going to be like, it's just like Transformers.
Shut up. I don't even like Transformers that much.
Bob's seen every Transformers film.
I have. You're right. I lied to you. I haven't seen the new one.
Monkey.
I haven't seen the new one purely out of spite because you keep dunking on me for watching Transformers.
You're their biggest fan.
God damn.
All right, well, that's all I got.
Okay. I guess we're going to watch this movie, huh? We'll
We'll go
see you
watch
guys
it.
in a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching The Mummy,
Yeah.
1932.
32.
32. That's
Not-
how old Ben is. Ben's 32 years old. Oh, no.
God, I hope not.
No.
I feel that old sometimes, but
I also feel that old sometimes, but I know we're not that old yet.
yeah, Bob's a child still.
You are a year older than me. Shut your fucking mouth.
Yeah, but that's like a whole millennia.
I'm going to choke you out. I'm going to fucking strangle your ass on the podcast.
I think that's a crime.
Okay. I don't care. You deserve it at this point. All the shit you put me through.
I've done nothing of the sort.
Okay.
I'm
anyway.
a joy that we're going with.
Sometimes.
Anyways, yeah, how'd you like it?
I liked it. I thought it was really fun.
It's fun. Yeah, it's a good movie. I guess we'll do our usual stick here. Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yes, please, for the love of God. This is look, okay. So like every other Universal monster film, I came in and I went, I know what I'm watching. I did not know what I was getting myself into with this film. So please go watch it because it's not what you expect at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this on the that like this movie is not the same as the 1999 The Mummy.
Yes.
That one's based on The Mummy's hand rather than this one.
Uh-huh.
At least in plot stuff. So, I think it's a good kind of almost blind watch. And apparently it's not easy to figure out because Bob was watching it. I was like, Bob, have you figured out what's happening? He was like, no.
Well, it took a minute. Look, I'm a little stupid. I'll admit that. I'm a little stupid, and sometimes I don't catch things.
It was like, Bob, when you figure it out, you're going to be like, I'm stupid. And yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to give a brief description, and then we'll talk about it. I don't think we're going to need a spoiler section here.
Nah, I think we're good.
It's pretty simple. But the premise is fairly straightforward. It starts with a cold open, which basically deals with the mummy coming to life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to note right now, because I think it's a very interesting point to note, that sequence is the only time Boris Karloff is in, like, mummy makeup.
Yeah.
Is only in the cold open. It's worth it, though. He looks great.
Oh, he looks so cool.
But I did some research on it, and that mummy makeup took, like, I think it's, like, 8 hours to get into, and then 2 hours to take off. So it wasn't sustainable. And it was also unpleasant. But the cold open shows the mummy coming back to life. And then the rest of the film is basically a romance movie.
Which is not what I expected.
With Imhotep trying to essentially resurrect his love, Anck-su-namun. It's sweet. I like it. With that being said, is there anything you want to talk about?
Do you know where you want to start? Do you have an idea?
Nothing in particular. I mean, this film uses a lot of techniques and stuff we've seen in other films.
Mm-hmm.
From the Universal Monster category, because again, it's coming out from a very similar time period with a similar cast, similar writers, similar directors. It's all a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, for that reason, a lot of it's old hat, and I think the only stuff that stands out for being the same are the things that are just notable. For instance, this movie doesn't really have sound.
No, yeah, that's something that I brought up during the movie. I think there are only...
I say sound, I mean music.
Yeah, there's only probably a handful of scenes with music.
Yeah, and it's very reminiscent of Dracula in that way.
Yeah.
I think it's really nice. I think they've done a better job with the technique than they did in Dracula. Because
Really?
Dracula is almost too quiet. Because there's a lot of sequences where there isn't any sound in general, and then there's no music. And in this one, there really wasn't a time period where it was just silent. There was always something happening.
Yeah, but I feel like the silence in Dracula is
It works in Dracula,
necessary in a lot of ways.
but it can also make that film a little bit boring, for lack of a better word. But yeah, aside from that, again, it's a lot of similar techniques from like film aspects and stuff. So I don't know if I really have anything to talk about there.
See, there's one thing that I noticed in this film that I did not notice in the other films. The use of shadow in this film is really good.
Yeah.
Especially for, like, showing stuff off screen that they wouldn't be allowed to show, or showing things that are, like, I don't know, just the way they use the black and white mixed with the use of shadow is just really good. And
That's
it's really
fair.
stark, and the contrast just makes a lot of scenes pop really hard, and adds a sort of, like, it, like, adds depth to the scenes that you don't really get in the other Universal Monster films that we've seen. That's, like, the huge thing for me.
Yeah, and I think part of that comes back to the fact that, this is a Boris Karloff film, and he is such an imposing guy.
Oh, he's so cool, man.
And I think it's a very easy jump to look at him and go, okay, we're going to make him very menacing, and to use shadow to do that. Because a lot of the shadow sequences are just Boris Karloff standing off screen.
Yeah.
And we're focusing on, like, this giant shadow he's casting over stuff. And I mean, I think that's a good transition into the fact that, well, a lot of the techniques are stuff we've seen before. It really does feel like a natural evolution of Dracula and Frankenstein. It's very nice that we've watched this one last because they use a lot of different stuff from those films. I mean, the shadow stuff feels like it's from Frankenstein. And again, I think that might be hearkening back to the fact that it's the same actor in the monster role. But they also use another technique in this film that is from Dracula. They use the eye lightening.
Yeah.
Because Imhotep, the mummy, has, like, special powers.
Yeah.
And they need to emphasize it, and they use the same technique there. Which, by the way, they have this really great. It's not even a still shot, I don't think. I think it's just a little clip, and they just have Boris Karloff standing really still, but they zoom in on his face, and they light up his eyes, and it's just so menacing.
It's really good. And they do a much better job at it. Like, I like it in Dracula, don't get me wrong. But in this, they use it, but then they'll fade it in and out in a much better way and, like, use it as a transition point.
Yeah.
And I really, really like it. I think it's super dope.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the point I want to make here, and kind of my big point with, like, technique stuff, is that this film just feels a lot more polished than the other two.
Yeah.
Because it's the newest.
Yeah.
And we're at the beginning of cinema still, and things progress really quickly, especially in the same studio. And you can see how they've done a better job with it over time. With that being said, I don't really have anything else I want to talk about with technique. So I think maybe a better discussion with this film is kind of the things we think that work really well in it.
Okay.
So for me, I think the biggest point for this film and why it's, at least for me, one of my personal favorites as far as Universal monster films go, is the fact that the monster, Imhotep, the mummy, is an actual character.
Yeah.
And he's not just an actual character in the sense that we get to see a lot of him. I mean, we see more of Boris Karloff as the mummy than Dracula.
Oh, for
or
sure.
Probably even Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Imhotep is, like, basically in the entire film.
Which is shocking once you come from those films. Because you
yeah.
don't expect it. But he also has a lot of lines.
He talks a lot, and he's characterized really well.
I mean, obviously, Frankenstein it's a character, but it's barely a character. Because Frankenstein doesn't talk. And he has dimensions, but they're not very complex. And while Dracula has a lot more dimensions because he can actually talk and everything, we don't get to see or hear a lot of Dracula. But this film is very much centered on Imhotep. And I think that's great.
It's super cool. It's super cool when you look at the other two, when you come from the other two films and go, I came in not expecting the mummy to, like, talk. I expected monster mummy movie, but he's very much a person, and that's super dope.
Yeah, he's just a guy. And it's really the thing that wins this movie for me, because Imhotep, at least for me, is very, I guess, sympathetic would be the proper word.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He has actual characterization, and I actually care about his story. In fact, I end up in the weird place I often do with, say, slasher movies, where I'm like, I don't care about anyone else. The mummy's like the coolest character.
I mean, you're not wrong.
And I want to see his story come to its natural conclusion and not anyone else's. And I think that says a lot about, the storytelling in this. And I think it's very strong.
Well, they do this really, really, really cool thing that I was kind of half expecting it, but I didn't know how they were going to tie it in, where they give us, like, really good background stuff about Imhotep when he was, like, not a mummy.
Yep.
You get a really awesome flashback sequence that lets you give, like, meaning and depth to a character, and it's super, super cool. It honestly might be one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
Yeah, and that's obviously on top of some of the stuff we're able to gather from, like, the circumstances we find his mummy in.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff. And I think that's a good transition into the flashback sequence, which I think is really cool.
Oh, it's super dope.
And is, first of all, a great emphasis on the use of practical effects in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They're great, and we can come back to that in a second, but I bring it up here because the fade-in to the flashback sequence isn't just like, oh, transition. There's this pool in front of Imhotep, and it fills with fog, essentially, and we get to see essentially green screen come over and ripple over to the pool.
Yeah.
And then it fades into the flashback sequence. But again, I agree with Bob. I think the flashback sequence is really, really cool. It's super stylized. It looks like a really cheap, cheesy version of ancient Egypt.
Yeah, but that's like peak 1930s, like...
Oh, yeah, it's super cool.
It's awesome. It's so fucking nice.
But I think what's so cool about that flashback sequence, besides the fact that we get to see a lot of Imhotep's backstory, and that gives us a lot of characterization. I mean, it makes you feel bad for him.
Oh, yeah. Like, that shit sucked.
Especially, there's a very intense sequence where he's being mummified alive, and he stares into the camera as his face is being wrapped, and it is just... I don't want to use the word heartbreaking, but it's just horrifying.
It's pretty horrific.
But I think the thing that's so cool about this sequence, and I don't know if you noted it, but it's very reminiscent of like black and white silent films. Because I don't know if you noticed, but this whole sequence it's voiced over,
It's voiced over and there's music, but there's no talking.
but there's no talking. And it very much reminds me, at least the way it's shot, of a lot of classic silent films, because everyone's like over exaggerating motions and stuff.
Yeah.
And even then, it's with the voiceover. If you were in a silent film, you know, there's title cards, but sometimes you could maybe have someone who's like standing there describing the film for you,
Yeah.
like a voiceover does. And obviously, silent films were never silent. There was always music. It was just live bands. It wasn't synchronized. But I thought that was really cool. It harkened back to an older form of media, at least as I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very interesting way to do a flashback. I thought it made it very effective.
That's really cool. I hadn't thought about it like that. Like, I hadn't thought about it in that way, at least. Considering that for a lot of people, I mean, what is this, 1932? I don't know how long sound had been in cinema. It hadn't been that long.
Not that long, and also not all theaters had synchronized sound yet.
Exactly. So it sort of makes sense and is really cool. It's also one of the only scenes with music. Like,
Yep.
There's
It stands out.
it stands out, and that's part of the reason I like it so much. Is it's musically scored, and the music in it is really good.
It also makes the whole scene feel more fantastical
Yeah,
than the
it
rest
feels
of the film.
it gives it impact and has like good thematics.
Especially because there's some lighting differences. It's a lot brighter
Yeah. And also, while we're here,
and cheaper looking again.
it has one of the most gruesome things I think we've seen in a Universal Monster movie yet, and it's super cool.
Someone gets speared all the way through.
Yeah, and you get to see the whole thing.
With that being said, I think we should go back to special effects. I think they're great in this movie.
Oh, they're so cool, man.
I mean, first of all, the makeup for Boris Karloff as the mummy
Oh
is
man.
insane. It's absolutely brilliant looking. And while he's not dressed up as the mummy anymore, Boris Karloff as a human, so Imhotep as a human, his name's Ardith Bey,
Yeah.
still distinctly looks
Wrinkly.
mummy-esque.
Yeah.
His face has a lot of wrinkles, and they're very interesting because they're kind of still in the same places
Mhm.
as when he was fully mummified. Looks really, really great. They did a great job on makeup. But more than that, there's some cool animatronic stuff with statues
Oh
moving.
my god, yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
That's just wild.
Yeah, that shit is so cool because, like, when you contextualize it in the universe of the mummy, like, Egyptian mythology was completely correct. Like, it's real. Like, all of that actually exists.
Now they have a very flawed version of Egyptian mythology.
For sure,
But
but it exists. So what they do is, when people, like, are praying to the Egyptian gods and stuff, there are statues of them that move and do things because they're real. And that's so dope when you contextualize it like that.
Yep. There's also, we mentioned the pool with the fog and
Oh,
everything.
man.
Because
Yeah.
there is magic in this world.
Mhm.
Imhotep uses magic. And there's a couple different sequences where we get to see that. And they all just look
They
kind
all
of
look
cool.
so dope. So dope.
One of the best sequences of it is we get to see someone's body transition really quickly.
Yeah.
And
That one's
it's
dope.
very much a transition similar to the end of Invisible Man.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks so rad.
It looks so cool.
But yeah, overall, I think practical effects are really great. They really help this film.
Mm-hmm. Lots of good, like, actual fire stuff with, like, torches
Yeah.
and, like, stuff burning. Also, when the mummy, like, touches stuff, he'll leave, like, a dust trail behind him,
Yeah.
which is so cool and you don't expect it.
It's a little thing. And then I think we touched on this briefly, but I'll bring it back up again. Because it's not necessarily special effects, because they don't do it with special effects.
Mhm.
But there is magic in this film. And I think it was a nice little addition.
No, me too.
It really makes this film stand out from other things. Because Dracula had magic,
Mhm.
but it was primarily off-screen.
yeah.
Because, again, we didn't really get to see Dracula doing it. But in this film, because Imhotep is such a big character, we get to see the magic being performed. It's so cool.
It's awesome.
Just to watch, like, people be cursed and stuff
Yeah.
is
No, it's so dope.
wild.
And it, like, sort of... I think I made this joke during the movie. Imhotep was a priest. So he's got, like, holy magic for, like, curses and stuff.
Bob called him a 5th-level cleric.
Well, no, he's not. He has to be higher than 5th level. He has 5th level spells. Come on.
I don't know, Bob. I'm not a nerd.
D&D. That's what I'm getting at. But it's super cool because, like, I don't know. And the way that Dracula's magic is sort of tied to him being an undead creature of the night, his magic is sort of tied to him being a priest in his life, which is, I think, much cooler.
Yeah, because it feels earned.
It feels earned, less than Dracula just being like, I'm a vampire. Ah.
But more than that, Dracula uses magic, but it feels very loose,
Yeah.
and it makes the character. It's supposed to make Dracula feel powerful,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't really come across. But I think it does a much better job in this film. Like, because we get to see Imhotep use magic and we get to see some of the direct effects of it, it feels much stronger.
Yeah, for sure.
With that being said, I think the only thing I want to touch on as far as the rest of the movie goes is kind of some of the carry-throughs that I think people might be familiar with. I mean, obviously, the mummy's name's Imhotep.
Mm-hmm.
That's, if you've watched the 1999 Mummy, there's some things that follow through. Anck-se-namun is in this. He's trying to resurrect his love. That's very, again, 1999 Mummy. But I will say, I think the plot is a lot closer to The Mummy Returns, if you're curious. I don't know when the last time anyone's watched that one. But the thing I want to liken here is that there's a ton of small things in this film that, if you've seen other versions of The Mummy, really come through. And I think the place where that's most evident is with how the mummy comes back. Mm-hmm. It's with the Scroll of Thoth.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really cool MacGuffin in this film. It's basically a scroll that does whatever necromancy bullshit you need. But they find it in a little casket thing right next to Imhotep.
Yeah.
And is right at the opening, but Bob saw it and he was like totally expecting the sequence from The Mummy from 1999.
I literally was like, I'm expecting this.
And I bring this up because I think that's just a really cool part of this film, is because this film is somewhat in pop culture, but not as much as, Frankenstein or Dracula. You can see some things that are vaguely familiar.
For sure.
But aren't so identical that it's not surprising. And I think it gives this film this really, really unique ability to be both familiar and new. And it really helps it, I think, for a modern audience, be very interesting.
It was super cool to watch for the first time, considering I didn't know what I was getting myself into, because I came in sort of expecting, like, the action-adventure aspects of the film to be a lot harder, like the 1999
You
Mummy.
thought it was going to be a pulp action movie.
I was expecting, like, a tomb crawl with a mummy chasing people and being like a monster. And no, it's this really awful, tragic love story about a man just wanting to bring his love back to life. And
it's so sad. I'm like,
things going poorly.
I kind of just want to watch the love story and nothing else.
But it's really good.
Oh, yeah. And there's unique stuff and there's familiar stuff in it. It really works. I mean, part of the issue is Imhotep walks so slow in this. He acts like a mummy, but it's super cool.
It is really, really, really cool.
With that being said, I don't think I have much else to say. Is there anything you've got, or should we go to recommendations?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about on this episode. Comparatively to, like, Dracula or something like that. Oh, you know what? We can talk about this. You made this point during the movie, and you said it to me. You like Boris Karloff's Mummy better than Dracula.
Yeah.
Like, character-wise.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's a hard comparison because I think Imhotep is just more of a character.
Sure. I think I agree with you. But solely because Dracula is like this suave, sort of silver-tongued bastard man who's, like, manipulating people into doing what he wants and, like, is generally mischievous. But Imhotep is, like, a person who just is sad.
Yeah.
And it's much more relatable than just being, like, some silver-tongued serpent.
He's shockingly not that evil. I mean,
he's not evil.
He
is evil.
Immoral. He does some immoral things.
Some bad things.
But they're very, I guess the best word would be reluctant.
Yeah.
Like he's
doing them because he has to, not because he wants to.
He has a goal, and it's very clear that's all he wants to accomplish, and nothing else matters. But he very distinctly is willing to compromise as long as he gets what he wants.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's the coolest part about this movie is that we've escalated from monster that doesn't talk and sort of shambles around and does things to monster who has motivations and is a person to just a person being a monster, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I really, really like this movie a lot. And I think you're totally right when you said at the beginning of the episode that this really shows like the escalation and refinement of Universal Monster films. Like I'm also really glad that we got this one last. Because if we started with this one, honestly, Frankenstein and Dracula would have been a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Because this one is really good.
Also, it's got that cool aesthetic of Egypt in the 1920s.
Oh yeah, it's just cool.
It's
Like it just
cool.
looks cool. I think I'm good.
All right. I guess we can do recommendations though. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. If you've never seen The Mummy and you like the 1999 Mummy, watch this movie. It's cool. It, like I said, it's very different from that film, but in like the best ways possible, because it's got a similar vibe, but not really. I don't know. It's just very unique, and it's not really what I expected. And I think that's super dope. I feel like Boris Karloff, he does a fucking kick-ass job in this movie. He's so good. Such a good performance from him. If you like black and white films, this is probably, of the Universal Monster films we watched, the best one to deal with black and white and use it the best and most effectively. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I have any more.
All right. Straight off the bat, if you're into Universal Monster films and you haven't seen this one, this is one of the really big classics. So it's definitely worth a watch. If you're into The Mummy, both as like the concept of, a reanimated mummy, or just you're into, say, one of the Mummy movies. Doesn't have to be the 1999 one. Hell, it could be one of the Hammer ones. But if you're into The Mummy and you haven't seen the original, this is definitely worth a watch. But I think the big recommendation here is if you just like Boris Karloff. I personally think this is one of his best roles. And like if you're into him, but also want to see like kind of a tragic romance, especially with a very interestingly almost emotionless Maine, because he's not very emotive, but he's very emotional, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're into like a love story of Boris Karloff, I think it's a very good combination of both of those things. With that being said, give it a rating, Bob.
I think we all know what number I'm about to say. 5. This
Yeah.
is my favorite one. And I gave the other two a 5.
Yep.
And they deserved it. This one also fucking deserves it. Not because... I'm not even thinking about the cultural significance of this film right now. Okay? Like, I'm not even considering that there are a gabillion spin-offs, a remake in 1999 that's really good, and then a bunch of garbage after that. This movie is genuinely so good. Like, this one is the one where I go, I don't even care, like, that it's culturally significant. It's just a fantastic film. And it's the only one that, like, actually surprised me when I watched it. I went, oh, I wasn't expecting this. This is really cool. I have no more. It's so good. Fantastic. Go watch it. Love it.
Okay. I'm going to give it a 5 as well. And I'm going to be honest. It's mostly because I just really like this movie.
No, I mean, that's fair. I do too.
My favorite Universal Monster film. I don't know. Probably my second's what? The Invisible Man. I think that movie's just cool.
Movie is cool.
But I think it's very interesting to give this one a 5 because while I really, really like it, it's objectively not as impactful from a cultural standpoint as any of the
No.
other films. I mean, it has a lot of spin-offs, but if you couldn't tell from my description, it was never really continued or readapted fully.
Which is weird.
Most of the adaptations that are modern are very different. I mean, even The Mummy, like, me and Bob talk about The Mummy a lot on this podcast, but we both love the 1999 Brendan Fraser Mummy. It's really, really fun. It's really, really good. But it's also very, very different from this film.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though that this film doesn't, I think, have the same staying power as, like, Frankenstein or Dracula, and maybe objectively it's not as, like, I don't know, classically great in the same sense, I think I prefer it. And I think it's a lot more fun.
No, and I think that comes from a place of like, it's when you go to a person and you go, hey, let's watch a movie about mummies. This is not what you expect. And to be surprised by a film from 1932 is fucking crazy.
Yeah. So either way, 5.
Yeah, man.
On that note, though, I think we're going to go to the outtakes. We'll see what we got.
Yeah.
Then we'll be back.
We'll see you guys in a minute.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the outtake section for this episode of Beware the Board. I hope you're enjoying our review of The Mummy so far.
I really like this movie. I think it's by far my favorite Universal Monster movie we've seen on the show so far. But without further ado, let's get into the outtakes. This first clip is Ben trying to gaslight me about someone's identity. Also, why does the Mummy have weird mind control powers?
Who?
The Mummy!
You mean Ardith Bay?
Oh my god.
Obviously different people.
Obviously. This guy's not
Obviously.
nearly as wrinkly as the Mummy.
Actually.
He's not.
Actually,
He's still wrinkly.
He might be just as wrinkly.
He's not as wrinkly. The Mummy had, like, Thanos' chin. This guy, not as wrinkly. This next clip is our reaction to the Mummy's magic murder powers.
Yeah, but I guess the point I'm making is in defense. These people did steal all his shit and then desecrate him and his friends' bodies.
Oh! He's giving him a heart attack! What the fuck? No, Ben, he's so evil!
Nah, maybe that's natural. He's an old man.
This is not natural, Benjamin.
He's an old man. He might be French. Think about all that butter.
He did speak French, but he's not French. Pretty sure he's English.
Think about all that English food.
All those beans and toast.
Butter. In his defense, he did ask nicely. He was like, return my shit to me.
Or die.
Or die.
And now they're facing the die part of the consequences.
He even gave them time.
That was so fucking cool. I think this is the first Universal Monster movie we've seen where the monster has, like, done something like that. And that was sick as fuck. This next clip is Ben ruining a good episode title. Love and Crime and Death, my 3 favorite things.
Honestly, kinda.
Oh, they just look cool, though.
Yeah, they're pumping fog into the thing.
Is that the name of the episode, Love and Crime and Death?
In robots.
You ruined it. That was a good joke. That was a good bit.
Good.
Oh, this is cool. I like this. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Ben?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
So, usual stick. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcast, other places on the internet. We're also on YouTube, which, while not the best place to watch podcasts, it's made for videos. It's nice for us because you can show us some support. It really lets us know, interaction with the audience. We can see that through, subscriptions, likes on videos. More than that, though, YouTube has a couple cool tools for you guys to use. There's a search button, which lets you search for, a movie title. So if you don't know if we've reviewed, I don't know, Rosin, you can search that in the search bar of all our videos, and it'll come up that, look, we did that, 30 episodes ago now.
Oh, God. Has it been that long?
Yeah. It's 29 or something.
It's been a while.
Aside from that, though, the big thing with YouTube is it's one of the 2 main places to communicate with us at. You can do that in the comment section of a specific video, or you can go over to Twitter, @BewareTheBoard, and call upon Bob. See if you can resurrect him from the depths of the internet.
Ah, okay. Didn't know where you were going with that one. Not bad. Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter, @BewareTheBoard. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything you want to know about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that Friday's episode, which is basically a hidden movie cover that you can reveal. So you can watch the movie before we do. So whatever we listen to the episode and we talk about the movie, and we're being vague about stuff, you don't get any spoilers. Then on Fridays, ever miss an upload, or when you know when something went up, there's always a link there. So check us out, @BewareTheBoard on Twitter. Last thing, we do short form content. I know I haven't put one up in a minute. I actually, as of recording
You
this,
just
I just
put one up.
and I have another one in the works that I'm working on. But we do short form content
We
at
know-
BewareTheBoard on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts.
We normally don't post for a while because Bob doesn't make them. But
Yeah, they're hard to make.
this is the first time you could change your script.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like short form content and like the show, check us out there. YouTube Shorts and @BewareTheBoard on TikTok. Benjamin, I think that's it.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
For, second to last episode of the season.
Yeah.